It's that time of year where prognostications are everywhere. Here to start the year, we're going to talk about where they have value, but most importantly, how we can use them to prepare. I can only imagine that based on the amount of prognostications and a well-vetted track record that shows how poor most of them are every year, that it's got to be in people's contracts. Hey, if you're going to be our chief something or other every year, end of the year, beginning of the year, you've got to make some kind of forecast. We get asked about them all the time. We get articles forwarded to us with regularity. And of course, one of the questions people ask is, should I even be paying attention to these? And the answer is yes and no. If you're using them because you think you can predict yourself or using them what's going to come ahead, time the markets, use them to position your portfolio for a certain outcome you think is going to happen, that's probably going to end poorly. However, when we talk about this with our own commentaries that we put out, if you're thinking of them more as an emotionally preparedness tool, what are the range of outcomes? Because of course there is a range of prognostications. Everybody's secretly hoping maybe theirs is right so that they can sell a great newsletter to people on all their future predictions. That makes some sense. We want to get to a place both emotionally as well as within our portfolios where we're balanced, we're ready for a range of outcomes. And that's, again, where I think market outlooks, prognostications can have a lot of value. So while prognostications, outlooks can have value from both an emotional preparedness standpoint, as well as looking at your portfolio and saying, man, if this really bad thing happens, to make it simplistic, or really good thing happens, am I positioned to be ready for whatever may be coming down the pike? The issue, the challenge to that is, again, remaining objective. And this is where we're going to begin this week's part one of the commentary, which is, what is the challenge to that? Well, one of the big challenges is what we hope the market's going to bring. Lots of different fallacies around this. Filtering based on what you want to believe is going to be the case. Or as to point one here, that classic gambler's fallacy, which kind of has two parts. One, believing that what's been happening, i.e. we've been flipping the coin and it's on heads, somehow changes the probability of what is going to happen on the next flip. And or the studies that have been done where they show people at the horse track betting on horses, and suddenly their conviction that they've picked the right horse goes up dramatically once they've laid the bet. Same type of instincts, challenges come into us as investors, and again, skew us in a way that, again, is not productive to eventually reaching that financial independence, the goals, or just the diversification that we want to see within our portfolios. The truth of the matter, of course, is something quite different. Thus, there's the market adage that the market will do whatever is going to hurt the most people. Very dark saying, but true. And again, when people talk about wanting to be a counterintuitive investor, fade the crowd, we talk regularly and certainly look. People get too bearish when that CNN fear and greed index goes into the single digits. That's usually a time where we're looking to get more aggressive. Or if people are getting too euphoric, you start seeing that bleed up into the greed category. That's some time where we start to think taking some chips off the table. Some of that's purely psychological. Some of that's about the flow of money and how if everyone's already positioned one way, there's not a lot more room to push things up. But again, all things we want to keep in mind that come from more of a place of objectivity, a place of science and math, trying to, in this case, get our emotion as far out of the process as we can. Wanted to share as a setup for what will be part two, which is sharing some of our favorite outlooks and then again solutions to the year that lies ahead, is a prospect that came in late 21. Something like this story has happened any number of times where the person comes in and they think, hey, my intentions or what I need to have happen is really what then is likely to have happen. For this gentleman on the precipice of retirement, stated he wanted to retire a year from then in Q4 of 2022, had very aggressive portfolio and mostly tech stocks. It was like, hey, the last couple of years we got 20%. If I can get one more year of that, I'll really have the number I want. Jake's spoken countless times around the fallacy of needing a number, but again, was falling prey to that gambler's fallacy of what had happened, was going to happen again, or again, how he had positioned, the bets he had laid, somehow changed his odds of what was going to come next. Of course, what happened, sadly for this person, that we encouraged to, hey, you need to diversify. We need to lock in some cash flow to get you ready to replace that income in retirement. And he agreed with all that, but just after one more year of 20% gains, was that the market fell, and it fell hard. From that, almost to the day of those meetings in Q4 of 21 until 2022, the NASDAQ tumbled 30+%. He panicked at that time, knowing, oh man, I was about ready to retire, doesn't get to participate in a lot of the rebound. Here we are 2 years later, and to my knowledge, he's still trying to fix the portfolio, still working, blew up his entire plan. Sad story, something we hate to see, work very hard and have dedicated our lives to helping people avoid. But again, that common story about that impulse, that desire, those emotions around, again, intent as opposed to focusing on need. We're going to go into part 2 next week, where we're going to share some of the outlooks we like most. Usually there's a couple part test outlooks. 1, no big calls, not looking for people who are trying to get on TV or get famous. 2, people who have a little bit of humility to recognize, again, this is what I think is the highest probability outcome, but a range. We'll share those, as well as some good news. This is actually a great time to be an investor if you'll step back and take a little bit more broad perspective to how you're going to allocate than just what you're likely to be hearing on the news. Thanks so much. We'll see you next week.